Long-term spaceflight is certainly not an easy task. For me personally, it is difficult, not even physically, because I have adapted to the weightlessness very quickly, but psychologically. Here, at the altitude of several hundred kilometers, I miss the Earth very much. I miss home, my loved ones. I miss my daily routine. Everything that is left down there.
In space, a variety of factors affect the psychological state of a person. Long stays in weightlessness, confined space and distance from Earth, complex work with high risk. All this, of course, increases the stress felt by the astronauts during a long flight. Today, they will tell you how to cope with stress and show what psychological support for the crew in the orbit is.
To live in an enclosed space at a distance of 400 kilometers from Earth is a serious test. Therefore, before being enrolled, all future astronauts undergo strict psychological selection. Numerous tests, checkups, and interviews help experts to determine whether the candidate is ready for all the challenges of a space flight. Throughout the learning and training processes, each crew prepares to travel to the space station not only physically, but also psychologically. However, no matter how good and proven over the years the ground training is, in weightless conditions, a person starts to understand many things very differently. And in some cases, an assistance from the Earth is extremely necessary for him. Unfortunately, you can never relax. As the ISS is flying in space, and space is a very aggressive environment, you always feel the pressure. It is a part of our work, a part of the operational work. The Mission Control Center works day and night depending on the need. At the Mission Control Center, there is a special group of psychological support. Its staff directly communicates with the crew throughout the expedition. I would like to thank the group of psychological support. This girl who works at the MCC and provides psychological comfort for us here, a comfortable psychological atmosphere. How do they do it? Of course, through video transmission.
They make video for our needs, and every day they upload films, documentaries, news. We look forward to it.
Well, some personal things like music, songs, in general, any video information. We are looking forward to it all the time. But usually it happens in the evening. And we, according to tradition, watch the news at 7 o'clock local time. We always watch the news during dinner, like we do at home. In addition, the group of psychological support prepares and arranges the delivery of little parcels on board. They send them with the so-called trucks, manned spaceships. These are grapefruits, oranges, well, everything that is not in the standard diet, and everything that we need. Onion, garlic, chocolates, sweets. It is like a treat for us. All this is arranged by our girls from the group of psychological support. Getting used to living in the weightlessness is an individual process, and all the astronauts go through it differently. Someone does not feel well during the first 2 or 3 weeks in space. Someone, on the contrary, almost immediately feels good on board the station. Mikhail Kornienko got used to the weightlessness smoothly and quickly. There was no hard period with all the psychological problems, such as nausea and dizziness. It is much more difficult, according to the cosmonaut, to get used to life at the station in psychological terms. Days are often similar to one another, despite the variety of tasks. And over time, a person starts missing things he had on Earth. I even miss the smells from Earth. What helps me to distract from the sad thoughts? First of all, there is enough work for any astronaut. Almost every day, and even every hour, is scheduled, and there's always something to do. And of course, the possibility to communicate with Earth helps a lot. The ability to call to the Earth every day, sometimes not only one time a day. Video calls, parcels from home, from my wife, photos of loved ones which each astronaut has in his cabin. Today, the crew is able to call to landlines and mobile phones directly from the space station. Once a week, at the weekends, a communication session with their families is planned. In addition, the astronaut can see their families on their birthdays during the expeditions and in the New Year's. But besides that, at the ISS, there are only 3 weekends, not 10, as on Earth. Now I have a minute of free time, and I will go to my cabin, where I have a laptop, a computer, through which I can call my mother. I will call my family if you don't mind. This is my cabin. Using this headset, pre-enabling it, I can call to the Earth on any cell phone or a home phone. This is what I am going to do now. On my computer, I have a virtual model of the phone, virtual buttons which I use to type, and graphic schedule of communication through satellite. If there is a connection, and now there is, I can call home. This is what I'm doing now. Mikhail Kornienko says that this is the most difficult year of her life. Throughout the expedition, she is counting months and then weeks before its completion. Without Mikhail, she celebrated his birthday. And for the first time of living together, they were so far from each other in the new year.
Well, of course, it's in a long period of time. We are counting the days, how much is left. He calls every day, yes. He tries to, if it's possible. Well, he does it every day. I wish I could call him now.
We were communicating with the family of the astronaut during the entire flight. Several times we came to the apartment and to the summer house of Mikhail Kornienko.
This is our summer house. Oh, unfortunately, we have arrived here without Mikhail. We bought this house in 1995. We love it, take care of it. We love these flowers here. These are our grapes. Isabella, local from Moscow. Parsley, dill, radishes, peas. Here we have strawberries, zucchini, onion. Here we have potatoes. Now I will show you what my husband built. This is our legendary sauna, which he built with his own hands without a single nail. He used shovel grips as fastening bars. Here's our sauna. He really wanted to build a house, to plant a tree, and so on. It was tough, but he managed. Yes, well done. What about digging into the ground? He simply does not have time. He loves walking on the grass. It's necessary for him to pour 2 buckets of water over himself. This is how he begins mornings. He says that you need to earn your breakfast.
As a child, Mikhail Kornienko, like many boys of the same age, had dreamed of becoming an astronaut. His father served as a helicopter pilot in a special search and rescue team, which met the crew after the landing.
Mikhail served in the airborne troops, but he wasn't accepted to flight school due to his eyesight. He was off by 1/10 of a diopter.
The future astronaut entered the Moscow Aviation Institute. And then, already working in the Energy Space Rocket Corporation, he stubbornly continued trying to reach his goal. He was doing special exercises for his eyes, and after numerous medical examinations, he was able to prove to the doctors that he was ready for the space mission. The dream came true when Mikhail Kornienko was 49 years old. In 2010, he made his first flight.
Such people probably do not suffer from narcissism, because they have to wait for it for so many years and then wait their turn. It's hard psychologically, physically. He was working and then he understood if he does not pass the medical examination, well, he's an adequate man. He understands. Well, he did not pass. He tried 8 times with his own money. And now you see he did it.
After talking with his wife, Mikhail Kornienko leaves his cabin and goes to the service module to work. A short break is over. At the station, the schedule does not give time for sadness and nostalgia.
Most of the free time during the expedition, astronauts make videos and look at the Earth through the windows of the ISS.
Looking at the home planet sometimes helps no less than communicating with their loved ones. In the early months of his long flight, Mikhail Kornienko admitted that he missed terrestrial sunrises and sunsets, familiar sounds, and smells. The group of psychological support is trying to compensate for the lack of all this as much as possible through a variety of videos and photos from the Earth. Here, there are the views of the Earth, which you probably have already seen. They constantly get into the shot. We have them here at the time of the shooting. Here, there are simple Earth pictures that remind us of our planet, of things I have not seen for a long time: trees, green grass, water. These would seem such common things that you do not notice on the Earth. And here in space, after several months of the flight, you start to appreciate them and treat them very differently. They sent me this picture at my request. It is just a picture from a calendar, from an ordinary calendar. These are the views of nature. Now, we will replace the old ones that we have here. They get dirty because in weightlessness, everything flies.
Here, we will replace them with these new pictures.
You pass by them and they make you happier. You feel better when you look at the native village. Pines, lake, river. This was sent to us for the new year. A monkey. The year of the monkey. A Christmas tree. In fact, the group of psychological support deals with such things. And of course, they make our lives here a lot easier. I am very grateful for this. The astronauts step on the ground the last time before the long flight. Two of them have to spend 6 months in space, and Valery Polyakov more than a year. A year-long expedition of Mikhail Kornienko is not the longest in the history of Russian cosmos exploration. Today, the world record holder is the Russian cosmonaut Valery Polyakov, who worked at the Mir orbital station for 437 days. A doctor and an employee of the Institute of Biomedical Problems. During his journey on the orbit, he carried out a huge number of experiments and did much for the global space science. We have the same daily rhythm as on Earth because our entire schedule is set in accordance with Moscow time. The only difference is that our day is not normalized. The work can be given unexpectedly and during the holidays, so we can sometimes work for 16 hours and maybe even more.
There have been some orbital old-timers in the history of space exploration.
We met with one of them at the Zvezdny City just before the return of Mikhail Kornienko to Earth. I do not interfere. It is not necessary. Watch your height. Look, you have already flown to the moon. Pilot cosmonaut hero of Russia, Sergei Avdeyev, is at the simulator. When he was preparing for his space missions, there was no such technology in the Zvezdny City. In mid-August 1998, Sergei flew to the Mir space station to spend there 379 days.
Each cosmonaut draws their visions, their drawings, diagrams, everything that needs to be done. And in a small scale of, well, 4 sheets.
Maneuvers, orientation, elements, important elements of the shutter. And this crib flew with me in all the flights. For myself, I noted the dates with the stamp of the station when I had it all. But it was done before I flew into space, here, on Earth. On these sheets, which Sergei Avdeyev calls a space crib, there is a chronicle of his legendary flight which took place nearly 20 years ago. It is noteworthy that the commander of the Soyuz transport spacecraft who delivered the vehicle to orbit, as in the case of Mikhail Kornienko, was Gennady Padalka. During the spacewalk, they installed an experimental thin-film battery, assembled scientific instruments. Among them, there was a French meteor detector. During the flight, Sergei Avdeyev performed 4 spacewalks. The crew in which he worked was the first one which managed to grow wheat and collect seeds in space. 10 grains were left on board, and Sergei got the second space harvest. According to the astronaut, it was work and well-made schedule which helped him to distract and not go crazy during the long expedition.
And the most difficult were the 8th month and the 12th, the last month of the expedition.
In the end, you feel a big separation from everything happening in the world. And you get used to this weightlessness. It is very dangerous. Accustomed to the whole course of life here, you suddenly get a telegram or a radiogram. In this telegram, it is written that in such and such a day, you will be prescribed a training before the landing. What landing? Like, everything is fine. We are flying here and have adapted to everything. Sergei Avdeyev's 1-year-long flight was the last in a series of extra-long space missions of the last century. Since then, much has changed in science and technology. Therefore, the journey of Mikhail Kornienko pursues new goals. And certainly, its results will open new opportunities for the future conquerors of the universe. Keep watching, and you will see some unique experiments that an astronaut carries out on board of the ISS as part of the scientific program of his flight. And now, we offer you to hear the new Answers from Space. How many liters of water a day does an astronaut drink? On Earth, many use the following formula: 30 grams of water per kilogram of body weight. Is this formula appropriate on the ISS, given the complexity of the delivery of the resources from Earth? Well, I probably would not take into account the complexity of the delivery of the resources, because it is a vital necessity to drink.
Therefore, the Earth does not skimp on water delivery.
We drink 1.5 or 2 liters of water, well, approximately, depending on the load of the day, just as on Earth. This is without taking into account the water which comes to us with sublimated products that we dilute with water. Well, plus canned food, that is so-called hidden water. In general, we try to drink, of course, a little more here at the station. So there is no... Well, we need to detoxicate the body, so there are no salt deposits, no stagnation in the body. This is why we need to drink more water. Water is life, and they never tell us off for this from the Earth. On the contrary, it is recommended to drink more, especially after physical training.
So, one more question. Do you suffer from insomnia because there are 16 sunrises and sunsets in a day? How does your body cope with such an unusual thing? You know, it is very easy. We just do not look out the windows, through the windows, because there are 45 minutes in the day, 45 minutes in the night, and of course, it's impossible to sleep in such conditions. We live a normal terrestrial day. We wake up at 6 a.m., we go to sleep at 10 p.m., and get 8 hours of sleep. We live according to the Greenwich time, London, meridian. And so, when we go to the cabin, the guys in the SM module close the windows, and you cannot see what is going on outside. I sleep in the NOD 2 module on the ceiling. There are no windows there. So I come in, go to sleep at 10 or 11 p.m., and at 6 a.m. we get up with an alarm. That is an ordinary earthly rhythm of life, regardless of what is happening outside. Something like this, dear viewers.
viewers, let's now talk a little bit about work. Why do we fly? The main thing is, of course, science. The station is a big space laboratory. During my one-year-long flight, I perform more than 60 experiments, both according to the US and Russian programs. This is the remote sensing of the Earth by means of such devices. The environment provides us with a lot of problems, geophysics. In addition, of course, those are biological and medical experiments. Well, I guess we just do not have enough time to name all of them. I will just say that we have many experiments, and this is the main reason why we fly. They are important both on the Earth and for the future space flights. The first space station was launched into space more than 45 years ago. During this time, the space research facilities have not lost their relevance. After all, on the Earth, it is not possible to create an environment similar to what we have on board and around the ISS. The experiments which are carried out during long expeditions are unique and in all senses are very expensive. Today, you will see some of them in real time and probably learn a lot about the daily work of astronauts. Dear viewers, the cardiovector experiment is now being carried out by Sergei Volkov. The purpose of the experiment is to provide new scientific information about the role of the right and left parts of the heart and the circulatory system adaptation to prolonged spaceflight. Well, you know that I would not be able to remember such a complex sentence, so I read it out. Do not get me wrong. We do not disturb Sergei now, because 7 parameters of his body are being checked: breathing, heartbeat, blood circulation, and so on and so forth. The experiment is performed one time every 45 days. I will carry it out right after him. It is a very interesting experiment, and I hope that it will be useful not only in space for the future generations of astronauts,
but will also give practical results useful on Earth for the treatment of various heart illnesses. Actually, the aim of our flight and all space science is to help people on Earth.
Cardiovector is from the category of research that an astronaut could easily carry out alone. All that is necessary is to measure the blood pressure before the start of the experiment, take a special equipment set and an onboard computer, and find an hour of free time.
It needs to be carried out before exercising.
Cardiovector is a continuation of the work that was carried out on the Mir orbital station. But now the new equipment is used, which has very different capabilities. Today, we, the astronauts of the International Space Station, Sergei Volkov and Mikhail Kornienko, want to tell you more about a medical experiment which is carried out on board of the ISS. It is called algometry. This experiment is related to this section of the Man in Space biomedical research.
The experiment is being conducted by the Institute of Biomedical Problems.
This is a new experiment, which began on the ISS last year. The algometry experiment is a study of pain sensitivity of a human during a space flight. We conduct this experiment in order to improve the methods of providing the medical care to astronauts during a space flight.
This method is mostly needed during the long interplanetary flights, when it is impossible to evacuate an injured person from onboard the spacecraft.
It is also interesting to see if the pain threshold changes in weightlessness. Study of the pain threshold in the algometry experiment is carried out in two ways: by mechanical stimulation of certain points of the skin surface, and it is called pressure algometry, and by thermal stimulation, thermal algometry. Now Mikhail Kornienko has prepared the equipment to perform the algometry experiment by pressure algometry. The circuit is connected, the grounding, and the power cord. Pressure algometry is carried out using special equipment called an algometer. Algometer measures the pressure force when pressing a certain points of the body. Upon reaching the pain threshold, the tested person takes his finger out of a special button on the equipment, thereby fixing the numerical value of the pressure force and the cessation of pain test. To start the measurement of the pain threshold, it is necessary to take up the algometer and place the middle finger of the right hand into the recess on the rear panel. Then you press the start button on the front panel and hold it until you feel discomfort, the pain threshold. Upon reaching the pain threshold, it is necessary to stop pressing the start button and stop the measurement. Here one can see a mark of the stem which I was pressing. The pain threshold at the measurement is expressed in units of pressure force referred to the unit area, kilogram force per square centimeter. The pressure algometry method allows to obtain reliable information about the state of pain sensitivity in different parts of the body. Mikhail Kornienko was hurting himself for the sake of science throughout the whole flight. Once a month, it is necessary to carry out the test at the same time. This is a condition of the experiment. The measurement is carried out. The results are recorded on a flashcard on which they are stored and then returned to the Earth by the end of the expedition.
The results of the experiment will not only be useful to future astronauts during long or interplanetary flights.
With the help of this study, you can, for example, evaluate the effectiveness of the painkillers and select an appropriate one. And on Earth, this is no less important than in space. The pain threshold is measured before the space flight, during and after the flight. These values are compared in order to understand the effect of the spaceflight factors on the astronaut. The first survey during the flight must be conducted after 2 weeks of the stay at the ISS. The second method of pain threshold measurements is carried out by thermal algometry. Currently, this method is only used before and after the space flight. During the space flight, this method will be used only in 2017.
In order to carry out this experiment, The cosmonauts apply a technique to gradually increase the temperature of a copper plate using a thermal probe.
The thermal probe is used to warm up the skin in the forearm area in order to make an astronaut feel the controlled pain. Upon reaching the pain threshold, the tested person stops pressing the button and measures the temperature. The survey results during the thermoalgometry are recorded in degrees Celsius. An algometry experiment, to get the objective results, both methods are used because it can happen that the results of the study of pain sensitivity by different methods do not match.
In order to record the results of the research and store the scientific data, scientists use special software installed on a Russia MED, onboard medical computer.
During the preparation for the flight, the astronauts hope, and this is confirmed by the flight itself, that we only experience pain during the algometry experiment. And the rest of the space flight brings us only joy and satisfaction from a job well done. Life on the space station itself is a big scientific experiment, especially if the flight lasts for a year. The object of the research on the ISS can be any action, and even inaction, because in the course of some experiments, we study sleep in zero gravity or the physiological condition of astronauts in the moments of relaxation.
There is so much scientific work to do during the long expedition that there is no way around exact planning and detailed instructions for everything an astronaut does.
Here is my flight notebook in which I write down all the necessary things in the morning meetings and the evening meetings. They are called the DPC, Daily Planning Conference. And there I put down all the notes. Everyone has such a notebook. And my iPad, through which I read the telegrams, well, and all the necessary documentation that I need during the flight. The expedition of Mikhail Kornienko is interesting not only for the Russian science. Its results will help to prepare for the longer space journeys, which will be possible only with broad international cooperation. 342 days in space allow to accumulate an enormous amount of materials for that research, some of which Mikhail Kornienko conducted together with the American flight participant, astronaut Scott Kelly. Of course, there are biological and medical experiments. In particular, I would like to mention fluid shift. It is an experiment from the American program, the program of our partners. It is aimed at the study of eyesight during a long space flight. What changes occurs to the optic nerve and how to deal with these changes. In general, all this has a far-reaching goal, a flight to Mars, and sight is one of those problems that are being raised now.
Because, as it turned out, during a long flight, an astronaut's eyesight starts to deteriorate.
I could never imagine that I would do an eye ultrasound scan, an ultrasound analysis of the heart, brain, blood vessels, my cell. This experiment aimed at the future is very high-tech. It is a very good experiment. During the annual expedition of Mikhail Kornienko and Scott Kelly, the fluid shift experiment was held for the first time. Just a few years before their flight, American doctors who checked the health of NASA astronauts from the ISS got worried. 20 to 30% of those who lived on the space station for 6 months had a decreased visual acuity or the deformation of the optic nerve. Scott Kelly also complained about it after his last flight. Experts expect that the test with the participation of Mikhail Kornienko will help to understand why the site deteriorates and which of the orbital flight factors affect it the most. The research will continue on Earth shortly after the return of the cosmonauts from the one-year-long expedition. We have already held several sessions. In general, as I know, on the Earth, they are happy with us. This is the most important thing. We have already done my things in comparison with my previous flights, in terms of science, in terms of our experiments. In weightlessness, which on the Earth seems to be so surprising and attractive, there are a lot of factors negatively affecting a human body. Yes, here you can easily move hundreds of kilograms and carry out funny experiments, for example, with water. But from a medical point of view, it is an unnatural and aggressive environment. And the longer time the astronaut spends there, the greater the risk of returning to Earth not being in the best shape. Changes in the heart and difficulties with sight, influence of radiation, loss of bone and muscle tissue. This is only a short list of potential problems, the cause of which are the space conditions. Let's add emotional stress and psychological complexity, which are inevitable. After all sorts of people from all over the world work on the ISS. During the expedition of Mikhail Kornienko at the International Space Station, several members of the crew and several commanders have changed. He has worked with 14 different astronauts from Russia, USA, Denmark, Kazakhstan, Great Britain, Japan, and Italy. And with each of them, it was necessary to find a common language. There is no other way in the international team. This unusual experience of Mikhail Kornienko is also an object of research of space psychology. And a few words about the interaction of the crew members. In my opinion, it is one of the most important parts of a space flight. And I would like to note that in our crew, I would give an excellent grade for it. We have a 100% mutual understanding and mutual support. If I do something and something does not work, I do not need to even ask. The guys will always come to my rescue. Accordingly, I will come to help them too if I see that the help is needed. We have a 100% mutual understanding. I will repeat it. And perhaps it makes sense to still choose a crew according to the psychological compatibility of each member, according to the moral qualities, how friendly they were to each other on Earth. Probably it makes sense for the long flights. Well,
on this occasion, I would like to say thank you to my crew.
During a long expedition, each crew performs a spacewalk. And as a rule, none of them is held without scientific experiments for the ISS. Mikhail Kornienko made his spacewalk in August 2015. So this time, he helped his colleagues, Yuri Malenchenko and Sergei Volkov, to prepare. Today, as part of our preparation for the spacewalk, we collect and prepare the equipment that will be used directly in our work outside the station. In my hands, I have the equipment for the restoration experiment. You see, it is already assembled. It has arrived with the Progress cargo ship. These are a special frame, tablet, and equipment by means of which, in fact, the film will be applied to the tablet pages. The restoration experiment is designed for testing, for practicing methods of applying insulation to the surface of space objects. In our case, it is, of course, the International Space Station. But then, this knowledge can be applied to many other devices, flying in low orbits and traveling into deep space. In my hands, I have a device for film coding application, DFCA, such a complicated acronym. You see, there are two rolls in the metal film, which is in fact will be applied to the tablet pages. During the process, we will set the tablet here and like this. We are working out these actions on the handrail. Of course, we fix it so that there is no rotations. And then, opening a page, you can see that each page of the tablet is covered with a special coating. It has screen vacuum thermal insulation, the insulation which is used in our spaceships. This will be applied during our spacewalk. Yuri will tell you how this happens. With the help of these devices, Russian cosmonauts work out a new repair technology of the outer surface of the orbital complex. This is our notional surface for the experiment. The device, and here we have all the controls. This is the main power switch. First, we put the handle into the operating position, so it is more convenient to work with. We turn the power switch on, we get an indication. The film is already installed, we are ready. The roll is moved into the position for the application. This key is necessary to us. After the application, it is necessary to cut the part that remains on the surface. We will do it with an electric torch. There is also a roll which is needed after the application. We put it to the rolling mode. We should spread the film over the surface as if we are rolling the coating film so that it is more closely put to the surface. On the space station, the experiment looks very easy and comfortable to be carried out for the astronauts. However, in the open space, everything is different. Wearing the spacesuit, any movement is difficult, and you spend more time on the simple things of the operation than during the training. But for Yuri Malenchenko and Sergei Volkov, this spacewalk was not the first one. The astronauts cope with the planned objectives.
The following year, the crew will have more work on board. A new multi-purpose laboratory module, the Nauka, will be delivered.
It will become the most modern part of the Russian segment of the space station. And for sure, it will open a new page in the history of Russian space exploration. Dear viewers, today I'd like to talk to you about the power supply on the station. I think we haven't covered this subject yet, and I hope it will be interesting for you. Furthermore, today you have a unique opportunity to see the space waterworks. Mikhail Kornienko will uncover everything that's hidden behind the panels of living and laboratory modules. You will also find out what astronauts read during their missions and what other recreation opportunities they have in microgravity. It only makes sense that the International Space Station cannot maintain its normal operation without the help from Earth. All supplies are delivered here by cargo and crew transfer spacecrafts. But in power supply terms, the ISS is absolutely autonomous. The only source of energy for the gigantic orbital station is the sun. The station's EPS consists of solar arrays, which, as you probably know, are located both on Russian and American segments, and batteries that accumulate energy to be used when the ISS is eclipsed by Earth. So when we fly on the solar side, solar arrays send energy to the batteries, and when we pass through the shaded part of our orbit, these batteries feed the station. The solar arrays of the American segment. The station has 4 wings like this. Another 2 wings are looking down at the moment. Unfortunately, the camera cannot catch all of it at the same time. Here we can see a piece of a US radiator and the solar arrays of the service module. There they are. Unfortunately, we are looking at their rear now, meaning the silicon solar cells are on the other side, receiving solar energy. And here are the solar arrays of the service module again, only from another angle. We have recently entered daylight. This solar array is actively generating energy and passing it to batteries. Right now, we see one of the control laptops of the Russian orbital segment, which is used to send commands to various systems. I wanted to show you the solar array orientation system framework that we use to manually reposition solar arrays. Crew members' interference with this mostly automated process is only one way to control the solar arrays, because generally all of that is performed automatically or by specialists on the ground. But the crew has the possibility to take over the control if there's a need for that. We are going to have another look at the solar array wings of the US segment from the SO-1 module, which is almost prepared for a spacewalk. Let's get to a window. I'm showing you as much of them as I can. These are the solar array wings of the US segment. They generate most of the energy for the station because they have huge surface area. But some of the energy also comes from the Zvezda module solar arrays, as I told you already. As the station orbits around our planet, its angular position changes all the time. So the solar rays have to track the sun to stay at 90 degrees to the sun rays. That's the job of the solar ray orientation system. We call it simply SOSB. It can be activated by photosensors or the guidance, navigation, and control system. In emergency situations, the crew can position the arrays as needed manually via a control laptop with a special framework that I already showed you already. So the system is quite simple and quite reliable. The solar panels track the sun and always position themselves at 90 degrees to it. That is whenever it is possible. And the energy of photons is transformed into electricity and sent to the batteries, like I explained to you earlier. The total energy received from all of the solar rays, both US and Russian, is enough to power everything on the station with something left to spare. You can get a rough idea of the size of these panels from what I was able to show you through the windows. It's kind of like a small football field in space that flies together with us. And now let's get to the cupola, which is connected to Node 3, to have a look at the solar arrays of the Russian segment, US segment, and the American Cygnus spacecraft, which is docked to the station at the moment. See that? See that? That is the solar panel of the Cygnus, a cargo spacecraft that has recently docked to us. And here, we can see the Soyuz. It also has its solar arrays unfolded, and the energy generated by them is sent to the mains of the station. This is the Soyuz of Yuri Ivanovich Malenchenko. And let's look at all this beauty one more time. The power supply of the station is just one example of international collaboration on the ISS. No more running of this unique space laboratory requires cooperation of all the countries on the mission. And first of all, it concerns Russia and the United States of America. The control of the International Space Station has two sides to it, meaning there are two basic aspects that make the control of the ISS possible. On one hand, we are talking about the U.S. gimbals, which produce gyroscopic effect, and on the other hand, we have the thrusters of the Russian orbital segment. Gimbals cannot work without thrusters, and thrusters cannot stay in control of such a huge station all the time. So Russian and American segments depend on each other very much, and it forces both us and our American colleagues to collaborate in space, to find common language, and even sometimes even make friends. Dear viewers, Today I'd like to tell you about the space plumbing that we have here on the station. We are going to start this story with the Environmental Control System, ECS, located on the starboard side of the Zvezda module. We will go there now and I'll take off its housing. This was not written in our script, but I just want you to clearly see it and understand how it works. Right now, Sergei is working in that area, performing the experiment called Pilot, but I think he won't mind us and you won't mind him. Space water supply system has a very complex infrastructure, and the footage you are about to see is truly unique. Never before have astronauts done something like this for a TV audience. All the bolts that we have, here I unscrew one of them already. You see what happens to it? It's really tiny, and if it floats away, we won't find it, but I can attach it to my uniform like this and zip it up. Then I can take off another one. And again, put it away. Because if we lose it, we won't find it. We've been through that on the station. I'm taking off this ventilation shaft and then the panel that covers the environmental control system. I'm going to send it temporarily to the transfer compartment. So here we have the environmental control system. Basically, it's a big refrigerator that cools air. Moisture contained in the air is condensed on its surface and pumped through pipes further to the purification system. The length of the pipe, which goes in that direction, is about 5 meters. I'm trying to explain how it works in plain words, not to overload you with too much information. So the water condenses on the cooled surfaces, then it's collected into a container specially designed for weightlessness, and a special pump forwards it through a pipe to the purification system, which I'll show you next. Let's continue. I'm going to take off the panels that cover our space waterworks, our water supply system, and try to explain how the water from the ECS is purified in the multi-filtration unit. After the ECS, as I said, the water finds its way here behind this panel. I took it off for you, not to bore you with excessive technical details. I'll just say that the condensate collected by the ECS is very dirty, so before using it to make food or drinks, we need to purify it. That's why this condensate goes to the BKO multi-filtration unit. After pumping condensate through this unit, we get very pure and potable water, enriched with minerals. The multi-filtration unit purifies is to a distilled state. It has a special mixture inside that enriches water with minerals, almost the same way it's done, the battery in my flashlight has died. So this system basically works the same way as a water filtration system that we sometimes have under the sink at home, only with some adjustments for space environments. So after passing through the BKO multi-filtration unit of the ECS, our water becomes clean. Now it's good for consuming. We have this special water dispenser with a water heating function. This is a cold water, like at home, and hot water. To show you something interesting, I'm going to make a cup of space tea from the nice and pure water provided to us by the water supply system. We have these soft bags that already have tea and sugar inside. I cut off the edge to get access to a valve. We call it swallowtail because of their resemblance. It prevents water from pouring back out of the bag after filling it. Next, I open the tap and turn on the water pump. And here I have hot water being poured into my teacup. Usually we make around 8 of these runs. You can probably hear the pump working. One run is 25 milliliters, so a cup of tea is 200 milliliters. See, the water is hot, so tea is already steeping. Okay. That's it. The cup is full, and so I close the tap. And in 3 to 4 minutes, I'll enjoy a cup of great tea. Naturally, we can't avoid some droplets of water appearing here, and so here I have my sweet tea. This is how water recycling works on this station, not only in our part, but in the U.S. segment as well. It helps us to save water, reduce the freight traffic, and bring down the cost of the station's maintenance. Next, I will show you the distribution panel of a cargo vehicle and explain how we get the water out of it to refill the Rodnik system and water storage tanks. A resupply spacecraft usually delivers around 400 liters of water, 2 tanks, 200 liters each. Again, it's extra pure water that we can drink or put into the electron system to generate oxygen. I'm going to show you all of this next. Dear viewers, one more source of potable water on the station is the Progress cargo vehicle, where we are located right now. There's not much room here, so forgive me if the recording is not very clean or clear. Well, I'm doing what I can, so just bear with me. Here, we have waste cargo that is ready to be disposed of, and this is the oxygen supply system, SRPK, that we use to transfer water from the tanks of the cargo ship. There are 2 tanks, 200 liters each. This is a valve unit. We pressurize the tank with the help of an air compressor. The pressure is not too high, around 0.5 atmospheres. We connect water lines to these connectors and open the valve. And the water is squeezed out into water containers called EDV. Next, we can use these EDV containers to get water for drinking or install them into the electron system, which generates oxygen. Usually, a cargo vehicle brings us around 400 liters of water, but sometimes there are extra 22-liter water containers as an additional supply. Because in space, the same really as on Earth, there's really not much you can do without water. It really is the essential component of life support on the station. Dear viewers, I almost forgot to show you an additional system of water supply. We can also use it to get potable water. The water reserves are stored outside of the Zvezda module in two 200-liter water tanks. This is an emergency supply, and this panel here hides two water containers with water that we drink throughout the day. If you get thirsty, you can just grab this dispenser. See this red button? You need to pressurize the container by pumping some air into it. And let's say an astronaut has completed his workout for the day. Naturally, he is thirsty after it, so you run on the treadmill or you can pedal the exercise bicycle, and then you come here and you drink. Same as at home. Basically, you come over here, pour yourself some filtered high-quality water, and drink it. I'm going to show you what's hidden behind this panel to give you a clearer picture. This is a panel with valves, one valve for each water tank. The process is extremely simple. We create pressure in the tank with the help of a small compressor, and water simply flows over into a container for further use. And here we have two EDV containers. One of them is hooked up with these lines to the water dispenser, which allows us to be able to drink our water. We put on some music from time to time. It's easier and more fun to work for us, and not only for us, music is everything. And a few words about our leisure time. We have a wide range of opportunities here, from talking to our family and friends, like I already told you, to a small library. And I mean real books, not electronic. In my quarters, for example, I have Ilf and Petrov and Stanislav Lem. I often read Solaris before sleep. Flipping through several pages of it helps me fall asleep faster. Of course, we also have computer games. We can take photos of the Earth, watch some movies. Our partners have a huge video library, and we can easily access it from our computers and choose any movie. But they are all in English. We also have our Agat server to watch our own Russian movies. So basically, that's the type of entertainment that we have around us to help us on the ISS space station. On March 2nd, 2016, Mikhail Kornienko came back home from his year-long expedition. You will see his return trip very soon. Exclusive footage of his descent, first steps on the home planet, and the first interview after the flight.
Just keep watching, and you will see it with your own eyes.